As you can see, there are many styles of PinBar collars, but I'd like to bring to your attention just some of the things you should be aware of when you're in front of your customer. First of all, the PinBar length. In this first graphic, there's a little bit of a cinch. The cinch is what I call when it pulls it down toward the body. Now, if you were to use a smaller PinBar, say of this length, the cinch would be even pull it down more than it is, much like here. This is more like a British bread. I don't recommend PinBars on British bread. It's not a real good look, but some men do want it. You'll make it. You'll give the customer what they want. Another point I want to make is some of the PinBar collars have tie spread, and some of them don't. Where the PinBar should be put depends upon the type of tie you're using, the length of the collar. In this particular case, you can see that the PinBar holes are pretty well high, which means it's going to need a small tie. And it's going to sit on top of the bar, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a particular style. I would recommend that you ask your customer if he has a sample of something he's used to wearing, because if not, it's going to cause problems. If someone sends you a photo and they want to duplicate it, you're asking for problems. Have them submit a sample if they're really adamant about getting the correct style of PinBar collar. And like I said, in this particular image that you're pointing to now, is that the thick tie sits on top of the bar. It's a different look. Again, if you had a smaller PinBar, it would cinch it down even more than it is now. Here's an extreme cinch. Small PinBar collar, and you can see the style, how it brings it down. Here, it's wider. It's more like a 1-inch spread. He's going to wear it with a thick tie. It's going to sit on top of the bar. In most cases, if you're not sure, make the PinBar sit just right where the end of the band is at, like here, if you were unsure. In this particular case, you're going for a different style, but if I was doing it, I would put it right at the bottom or the base. In this particular case, you wouldn't, because the points are very short, and the hole would have to be down here somewhere, and it's not a good look. So again, depends on the length of the collar, the spread. Avoid British spreads or cutaways for PinBar collars. One of the first things that you should do when you're receiving retail shirts, that means shirts that have been submitted to you and they want to make them into PinBar collars, is always check the length. Don't assume that they're not. In this particular case, I've given you a close-up view. It's about 1/8 off. Now, I wouldn't become alarmed. If it becomes more like a 1/4 inch, then I would probably make a decision on whether I want to open up that side and make it the same as the other. But don't forget, it's labor. And if you start opening these things up and you tear it, you're going to pay for it. So again, I would basically, what I do is I take a photograph and I mail it to the customer. And I say, in order for us to put PinBars on it, I just want to make you aware that the lengths are not the same. And we can leave it like that, and for it being off a 1/16 or an 1/8, it probably won't be noticeable. And they'll probably say, well, go ahead and do it the way you want to do it. But if it's off a 1/4 inch, they're probably going to ask you to make them the same length. And you can charge appropriately, $5 or $10 extra for doing that kind of work. So be aware, you measure from where the collar meets the band to the end of it. Make sure they're both the same size. Another is make sure the holes are always in the same spot on both sides. And that's very important. You'll avoid problems if you notice all these things when you receive your shirts and put the tape to them. Very, very important. Okay, first of all, the first step is going to be to match your beginning of band with the length of the collar length. And you want to make sure you get them equal. And this is the purpose now. You've determined where, on what collar length, you're going to make your holes. And I'll show you that in the actual demo when I actually go through the whole process. But what I normally do is I'll take an owl and I'll mark where the eyelets are going to go, and I'll push through both of them. At this point, all you have is a hole, and that's the first step. And I'm going to show you next what happens when you don't match the hole with the center point. Okay, one of the things you should be aware is the hole size. And when you're using your template, make sure that the actual size is between 3/16 and no more than 1/4 inch. You can make it 2/16 if you want to work nice small little holes. It's not impossible. But here you can see there's a big hole and a big circle, and that's not a good look, especially on a collar. Here you have a small hole and a big circle. Neither. This one where the actual pin bar is, you can see this pin bar is only about 2 millimeters. You can see how small it is. And this is 3/16. So it's very important, the hole to circumference ratio, to get it accurate. And it makes a beautiful eyelet if you get those matching properly.